On my birthday, my uncle came to visit me. Did you like the motorcycle I sent you last year? I answered, what motorcycle? I didn't get anything. My uncle turned to look at my parents, who went silent and pale, and that's when all the lies came crashing down. You ever try to talk yourself out of caring about something that's been eating at you since you were a kid? Like, just slap a smile over it and keep going? That was basically my whole life growing up. My name's Dario. I'm 26 years old, born and raised in Bakersfield, California. I work the early shift at a hardware depot, loading pallets and pretending not to notice when people look through me like I'm just part of the shelving. It's not the worst job, but it's not a job you keep if your family believes in you. The truth is, I've been invisible in my own house since I was old enough to tie my own shoes. Everything I did, every little success I had, it was either brushed off or twisted into something small. I remember bringing home a science fair ribbon in 8th grade, 3rd place. I was proud of it. My mom took one look and said, Mateo would have gotten first. Mateo, my younger brother. He's 3 years younger than me, and somehow still treated like the newborn king of his family. He got praised for everything, even when there wasn't anything to praise. He painted a crooked ceramic bowl in 6th grade, and my parents acted like he'd been accepted into an art academy. Meanwhile, I taught myself how to rewire a ceiling fan when I was 17, and my dad said, don't play with the wiring. That's not for people like us. I started working full-time at the depot right after high school. No gap year. No, figuring things out. We couldn't afford that, my dad said. But Mateo? Mateo's been figuring things out for almost 6 years now. Tried acting school. Quit. Tried graphic design. Quit. Last I heard, he was dabbling in online branding, whatever the hell that means. And somehow, my parents still say he's just waiting for the right opportunity. You want to know what makes it all possible? My uncle Esteban. He lives in Portugal now. He retired young, had one of those careers where you travel a lot, collect stamps in your passport, and come home with stories instead of sunburns. And ever since we were kids, he's sent money to my parents every month. Just a little something for the family, he'd say on the phone. Use it however you need. And they do. They use it however they need to keep Mateo's dream of the month funded. New laptop? Covered. Weekend retreat to reconnect with his creative self? Also covered. And I swear, the last time I saw a package arrive addressed to him, it was a pair of suede loafers. Who even wears suede in Bakersfield? Uncle Esteban doesn't know. He thinks he's supporting groceries, bills, maybe some school tuition. If he knew his money was going toward Mateo's 5th attempt at becoming a podcast guru, I don't think he'd be so generous. But me? I just keep my head down, keep stacking pallets. And every now and then, I catch my reflection in the depot's freezer doors and wonder how the hell I became the background character in my own life. It was a Thursday. I remember that because I had the closing shift the night before, which meant I barely slept before dragging myself back to the depot at 7 a.m. My boots still had dried caulk on them from the last delivery. My shoulders ached, and all I wanted was to go home, microwave something greasy, and crash. When I stepped into the house, I could already tell something was off. For one, it smelled like frosting, that heavy, store-bought kind that sticks to the roof of your mouth. And the kitchen lights were on. Usually, that late, my parents were in the living room watching reruns or already asleep. Then I saw it. A cake, sitting right there on the table. Chocolate with blue piping. Happy birthday, Dario, written across the top in uneven cursive. I just stood there for a second, blinking. Surprise, my mom said, coming around the corner. She smiled like she was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. Your Uncle Esteban sent money for a little something, so we thought, why not? Mateo popped out from behind her, holding up a paper plate like he'd done all the work. Dude, it's not a big thing or anything. Just figured you'd want some cake, right? It was weird. My birthday's usually passed with a grunt and a reheated tamale. Suddenly we're doing cake now? With matching plates? I didn't know what to say. I think I just mumbled, thanks. We sat down and did cake. They even sang. Off key, but still, it happened. My dad clapped me on the shoulder and said, Big 26, huh? You're a man now. I chewed slowly, trying to figure out if I was being messed with. But the weirdest part? For a second, maybe half a minute, I felt good, like I mattered. Even if it was forced, even if it felt like I'd stepped into someone else's life. That feeling didn't last. A week later, I came home to find Mateo unboxing some kind of drone camera hybrid. For my new content series, he said, like that explained anything. I'm thinking, like, cinematic vlogs, nature, urban decay, stuff like that. A couple days after that, my parents were packing for a trip to Santa Barbara. Beachfront rental, 3 nights. You're not coming? My dad asked like I was the one being weird. Don't you have work anyway? I do. I always do. But that wasn't the point. I asked who was paying for all of it, and my mom just smiled and said, your uncle's been generous lately, wants us to enjoy life. They didn't invite me, not even as an afterthought. Mateo got the main bedroom. My parents took the master. Me? I got to cover shifts for the guy who broke his wrist at the depot. I stared at the cake box in the trash that night, part of the writing still visible through the smudged plastic lid. It hit me then. The cake wasn't for me. It was for show, for cover, for Esteban. Some nights, I couldn't sleep. Not because of work or bills. That stuff's background noise at this point. It was the silence that got to me. The way my house would go quiet after everyone turned in, and I'd just lie there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the things I never said out loud. Lately, my mind kept drifting back to summers with Uncle Esteban. He used to fly in from wherever he was living at the time, sometimes Spain, sometimes Costa Rica. He never stayed long, just a couple of weeks. But those visits, they were the only times I ever felt seen. I was 13 the first time he really paid attention to me. I remember him watching me try to fix the lock on our backyard shed. My dad had told me to leave it alone, said I'd probably just make it worse. But Esteban stood behind me, arms crossed, nodding like I was doing heart surgery. "You've got strong hands," he said when I finally jimmied it back into place. But a stronger heart. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever talked to me like that before. Like I wasn't just trying to prove something. After that, he taught me little things, how to sandwood properly, how to read grain direction, even how to shape a basic dovetail joint. He had this little leather-bound notebook full of sketches, motorcycles, handmade chests, carvings that looked like they belonged in a museum. He let me flip through it, carefully, like it was sacred. "Build something that lasts," he'd say. "Not just with your hands, with your life." He never talked about Mateo, never asked what my brother was up to. It was like, for those few weeks each year, I was the only one in the room. And when he left, he always hugged me extra tight and said, "Next time, you show me what you've made." But there was never a next time like that. As we got older, Esteban started sending money instead of visiting. Said he wanted to help from afar. For the family, he always wrote in his notes, "Use it wisely." I doubt he pictured his money paying for Mateo's branded tracksuits and wellness retreats. At the depot, nothing changed. I still showed up at dawn, still left with my hands smelling like solvent and sawdust. I kept my head down, watched the guys around me come and go. Some had ambitions, going back to school, getting certifications. Me? I was stuck. I started noticing things. My dad's new tablet, my mom's fancy mixer that sat untouched on the counter, Mateo's rotating collection of tech gear, gimbals, microphones, laptops, all paid for, none used longer than a week. I thought about telling Esteban, writing him a letter, maybe, explaining where his money was actually going. But something always stopped me. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I still believed that if I kept sacrificing, if I kept quiet, someone would finally notice me. But deep down, I already knew the truth. They didn't want me to speak up. They wanted me to stay useful and silent. My 27th birthday started like any other day, with the smell of industrial sealant and the sound of my manager yelling about a misplaced order. I didn't expect anything special. My family had already celebrated the week before with a half-hearted dinner and a clearance bin hoodie that still had the anti-theft tag attached. But that afternoon, while I was on break eating a burrito in a depot parking lot, my phone buzzed. "Esteban, flying in tonight. Taking everyone out for your birthday tomorrow. Dress decent. I'll pick the place. Happy early birthday, Mijo." I stared at the message for a solid minute, rereading it like I was trying to catch a lie hiding between the lines. He was coming. For me. That night, my parents and Mateo acted surprised when I told them. My mom put on her overly casual voice. "Oh, he didn't tell us." My dad just nodded like someone had asked him to pass the salt. Mateo, of course, made a joke about Esteban finally crawling out of whatever wine cellar he's been hiding in. The next day, Esteban texted the address. Lucas, a high-end Mediterranean spot way across town. I had never been, just knew it was the kind of place where they folded the napkins like origami and made you feel underdressed no matter what you wore. I ironed a shirt that hadn't seen daylight in months. Didn't care that it was 2 sizes too big. Didn't care that I still smelled faintly like glue. I just wanted to show up. When I got there, Esteban was already waiting outside, leaning against a silver rental car. He smiled the moment he saw me, arms wide. "Look at you," he said, pulling me into a hug so tight it knocked the air out of my chest. "You're taller than I remember." "You say that every year." I laughed. "Because you keep growing," he said, ruffling my hair. "Not just up, but out." Inside, the hostess led us to a long table by the windows. My parents and Mateo showed up 10 minutes late. My mom had on too much perfume. My dad wore a blazer that still had the plastic thread on the cuff. Mateo? He had sunglasses on inside. "Happy birthday," my mom said as she kissed my cheek. "You look rested." That was her version of a compliment. The food was unreal. Grilled octopus, lamb so tender it fell apart with a sigh, wine I couldn't pronounce. But what I remember most is Esteban. The way he kept steering the conversation toward me. "So, Dario," he said after the entrees came, "what do you really want to do?" I blinked. "With the depot, you mean?" "No, with your life." I paused, unsure how to answer. I'd never been asked that without sarcasm attached. "Well," I started slowly. "I used to want to open a workshop, like a real one, where I could do carpentry, metalwork, that kind of stuff. But, I shrugged. Doesn't pay the bills. Not around here." Mateo laughed under his breath. "Man builds a birdhouse once and thinks he's Chip Gaines." Esteban turned to him so fast, it was like a light switch flipped. "Mateo," he said, voice flat. "Let him speak." Mateo lifted his hands. "Relax, it was a joke." Esteban looked back at me. "Don't listen to that. You've got something real in you, Dario. I could see it when you were 13, sanding crooked boards in the backyard." My chest tightened. My dad cleared his throat. "He's always been good with his hands. Just doesn't aim higher. I disagree, Esteban said, slicing his steak without looking up. I think he's had his aim blocked by everything around him. It got quiet after that. You could feel the shift, like the room had taken sides, and only one of them had any ground to stand on. I didn't say much for the rest of the meal. I just sat there, listening to Esteban talk about Lisbon, about old motorcycles he was restoring, about how proud he was of me, actually proud, in front of people who'd never said it once. It was the best birthday I'd ever had, even with the tension, especially because of it. Dessert had just been served, something fancy with caramel shards and pistachio dust, when Esteban leaned back in his chair and turned to me. So, he said casually, did you end up liking the gift I sent last year? The wooden motorcycle? I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. What motorcycle? I asked. Esteban tilted his head. The one I carved. Took me 3 months to finish. Sent it right after your birthday last year. I set my fork down. My heart thudded in my ears. The only thing I got last year was a chocolate sheet cake, I said. The kind from the supermarket. No card, no note, just the cake. Esteban blinked. You didn't get a package? I shook my head slowly. Nope. There was a moment of silence, the kind that makes your skin crawl. Esteban looked over at my parents. His tone shifted, calm but hard. What cake? My mom looked up quickly, caught mid-sip of espresso. What do you mean? I mean the cake Dario just mentioned. You said nothing about the motorcycle. I asked you both to let him know it was from me. My dad cleared his throat. We thought maybe it got damaged in shipping. Mateo suddenly found something very interesting on the floor near his shoe. Esteban's eyes narrowed. I insured the package. It required a signature on delivery. Don't play dumb. My mom laughed nervously. Well, you know how things get around the holidays. A lot of mail. Save it, Esteban said, his voice like a blade. He turned back to me. It was hand-carved, cherry wood. Took me all winter to finish. Meant to be displayed. It had your initials engraved under the seat. I swallowed hard. That was the kind of gift you remember. The kind you keep forever. I'd never seen it. Esteban leaned forward, elbows on the table now. Where is it? No one answered. The music in the restaurant faded into the background. I could feel the stares from the tables nearby. Esteban's voice was low but unshakable. You stole something from me. Worse, you stole from him. He pointed at me. Then he sat back, arms crossed, and stared at my parents like he was seeing them for the first time. And maybe he was. Esteban didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The room felt like it shrank around us. Every clink of a fork and shuffle of a chair in the restaurant suddenly sounded 100 times louder. But at our table, no one moved. Where is it? Esteban asked again, quieter this time, not out of softness, but control. My dad looked around, anywhere but at him. We sold it, he finally said, voice brittle. Esteban blinked once. You what? My mom jumped in, fast and flustered. We didn't know what it was, okay? It came in this big wooden crate. We thought maybe it was something decorative, not meant for Dario. It looked expensive, and we were behind on it. It was addressed to him, Esteban snapped. My mom flinched. We used the money for the house. Esteban's voice dropped to a growl. How much did you get for it? Neither of them answered. Try me, he said. Mateo muttered. 1,200, I think. Esteban turned to him like a spotlight. You think? Mateo sat back in his chair like it might swallow him whole. Was that before or after you pawned the mahogany chest that I sent for Christmas? My mom's jaw tightened. You said that was for the family. No, Esteban said. I said it was for Dario. Just like the money I've been wiring you every month for him. For his schooling. For his savings. For his future. He turned to me, and his face softened just a fraction. You were supposed to have a college fund. I've sent money every single month for nearly a decade. My stomach turned. I laughed, just once, short and dry. I've never seen a cent. All three of them sat frozen. Esteban leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low but seething. You lied to me. You stole from me. And you robbed him of a future I tried to give him. My dad snapped. We did what we had to do. Things got tight. We were struggling. Esteban's eyes were sharp as glass. You weren't struggling. You were coasting. On his back. On my dime. People were staring now. A few turned their heads, pretending not to listen. Others didn't bother. Esteban stood. Enough. You think I'd let this slide? You think I'd keep sending money so Mateo can order leather sandals and find himself on a yoga retreat? Esteban, please, my mom said, standing too. Can we just talk about this privately? No, he said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. This stops here. He looked at the three of them, his jaw tight. You're cut off. Every cent, every gift, every transfer. Done. My dad rose from his seat. You can't just. I can, Esteban said, pulling his phone from his coat. And I already did. He tapped a button. Wire transfer suspended. Access revoked. Future shipments canceled. He turned to me. You, however, are coming with me. What? He put a hand on my shoulder. You deserve better than this circus. Pack a bag. Tonight. My mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked around at the table, at the crumbs of cake, at the faces I'd lived with all my life, and shook his head. Then, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear, he said, you had 27 years to treat him like a son. You chose a freeloader instead. And with that, he walked out, his hand still on my shoulder. The whole room watched us leave. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the invisible one. They did. The car ride back to Esteban's hotel was mostly quiet, but not uncomfortable. The silence had weight, not tension. It felt like everything that needed to be said had already been thrown onto the table at Lucas, shattering whatever illusion my parents had been clinging to. I sat in the passenger seat, still half in shock, watching the streetlights slide across Esteban's face as he drove. He finally broke the silence. I should have come sooner. I shook my head. You didn't know. I should have, he said, voice heavy. There were signs. Your dad always got vague when I asked for updates. Your mom started avoiding phone calls. I didn't want to believe they'd do that to you. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? Back at the hotel, he handed me a key card without asking. You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow we make arrangements. Arrangements? He sat on the edge of the bed and looked at me. I'm offering you a way out, Dario. Out of that house. Out of that job that's breaking your back for nothing. I want you to come with me. I've got property in Portugal and estate. Really. Big place, full workshop, tools, everything. I've been restoring bikes and furniture. I could use someone I trust. Someone who actually knows what they're doing. I stared at him. You want me to move to Portugal? He smiled. I want you to rebuild your life. Somewhere they can't drain it. It hit me then. He meant it. He wasn't just offering me a trip. He was offering me a second chance. What about the money? Flights? Visas? Esteban waved a hand like I'd asked about lunch. Already covered. I've got people who handle those details. All I need is your yes. I didn't think. I didn't weigh the pros and cons or ask for time to process. I just nodded. Yes, I said, and I meant it. Because for once, someone was opening a door instead of handing me a mop and telling me to clean up a mess I didn't make. Esteban stood and clapped his hands once, grinning like a kid. Good. You'll love it. Clean air, quiet mornings, work that matters. I looked around the room, plain walls, hotel furniture, nothing special, but I felt something shift in my chest. Something warm, something that had been missing for years. Hope. Esteban poured us each a glass of port from the minibar and raised his. To new beginnings, he said. I raised mine back, to finally being seen. Flying into Portugal felt like waking up from a dream I didn't know I was having. The air smelled different, saltier, quieter, clean in a way that stuck in your lungs. Esteban's estate was just outside a town called Sintra, nestled in hills thick with pine and stone paths that wound like something out of a storybook. The house was huge but humble. 2 stories, terracotta roof, faded blue shutters that rattled gently in the breeze. But the real heart of the place was out back, a sprawling workshop bigger than any garage I'd ever worked in. High ceilings, skylights, workbenches lined with chisels, clamps, and rows of polished wood. The place smelled like sawdust and motor oil and citrus from the trees that grew just beyond the fence. Esteban showed me around slowly, like he was handing me a secret. These, he said, gesturing to a row of gleaming motorcycles, are my babies. All hand-restored, one at a time. Some are sold, some are kept. All were built with love. I ran my hand along the side of a deep maroon Harley, the grain of the custom wood paneling warm and smooth. You made this. He nodded. From scratch. We walked to the back wall where a sheet covered something large. Esteban pulled it down slowly, revealing a wooden motorcycle, life-size, fully detailed, with tiny gears and handlebars carved into place like art. That's the one I meant to send you, he said. I swallowed hard. This was for me? He smiled. Still is. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, staring at the thing, feeling something break loose in my chest. That night, he handed me a set of keys to one of the back rooms. You stay as long as you need, or forever. Up to you. I did stay. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. I swept floors. I sanded frames. I learned the difference between pine and walnut just by smell. Esteban taught me joinery techniques he learned in Spain, how to tune an engine by ear, and how to shape wood like it was something alive. Eventually, he handed me a clipboard and said, You're managing now. I'll handle the invoices. You handle the shop. I didn't argue. I felt ready. Clients came from all over to see the work, to shake my hand, to ask questions and listen. And for the first time in my life, when I spoke, people paid attention. I wasn't the quiet one. I wasn't the disappointment. I wasn't invisible. I was Dario, craftsman, manager, builder. One evening, Esteban poured us each a glass of wine on the patio and said, I was right about you. You know. I smiled. I'm finally starting to believe it. It had been 6 weeks since I moved to Portugal when my phone rang with a number I recognized but hadn't seen in a long time, my parents' landline. I stared at the screen for a moment, thumb hovering. I knew what this was. I knew exactly what it was. I let it ring twice, then answered. Dario, my mother said immediately, her voice breathless. Thank God. We've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, flatly. You. There was a pause too long. Then my father's voice came through the line, lower, rougher. We've hit a bit of trouble. Of course you have. Esteban cut everything, he continued. The money, the transfers, the account access. We didn't realize how much was tied up in all that. I leaned back in the workshop chair, glanced over at the half-assembled bike on the lift. Let me guess, I said. The bills are stacking up. Mortgages behind. Mateo's credit cards finally caught up. Silence again. Your brother's trying, my mom said, but he's still in between things. You know how hard that can be. I laughed. He's been in between things since I was in high school. We didn't call to argue. My dad snapped. We need help. Your mother and I are being evicted if we don't come up with a payment by the end of the month. And you thought I'd be the one to fix it? You've always been the reliable one, my mom said quickly. That's why. No, I interrupted. I was always the disposable one. The one who kept things running while you threw every spare dollar at Mateo's latest fantasy. Don't talk like that, she said, hurt flickering into her voice. We're still family. Really? I said, keeping my tone steady. Because family doesn't lie. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't throw away a handcrafted gift and cover it up with a grocery store cake. Esteban is manipulating you, my dad said, sharp now. He's turned you against your own blood. He didn't turn me into anything, I replied. He just finally told me the truth. You can't really think it's right to let your parents lose their home. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, phone pressed against my cheek. I felt calm, almost eerily so. You let me lose a future, I said. You stole years from me. You let Mateo waste everything while I killed myself working for your approval. I heard my mom start to cry on the other end. I waited, let it happen. Then I said, quietly, call Mateo. Ask your favorite. My dad's voice rose. Don't you dare walk away from this family, Dario. I didn't, I said. You all walked away from me. Years ago. I just finally stopped chasing after you. Then I hit the red button and hung up. I sat there in the workshop for a long time, not shaking, not angry, just done. The phone didn't ring again that night, not once. The sun was setting through the skylights when I finally called it a day. Esteban had already gone upstairs, humming some old folk tune under his breath, leaving me alone in the workshop with the warm, amber light and the quiet hum of cooling tools. I walked slowly down the center aisle, fingertips grazing the edge of each workbench, trailing across the sanded wood, the cold steel clamps, the coiled cords and bits of sawdust that clung like memories. At the far end of the shop stood a new project, a wooden sidecar, still in its early stages. The grain curved smooth around the frame where I'd spent the last few days carving the edge by hand. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was mine. It had my shape in it, my rhythm, my care. I ran my hand over the surface, felt the texture, the effort. I thought about everything that came before. About birthdays that passed like errands, about my hands blistered from depot shifts, about that feeling of being present in a room no one looked at. And for once, none of it hurt. It just was. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology that would never come. I didn't need it. Because I finally knew the truth. I wasn't broken. I was buried. And now I dug myself out. Behind me, I heard the creak of the old staircase. Esteban's voice carried softly. Still working. Just finishing up, I said, wiping my hands on a rag. He came beside me, looked over the sidecar, nodded slowly. You're shaping it well. Clean lines. Thanks. He was quiet a moment, then added, I've been thinking. About the estate. About what happens when I'm gone. I looked at him, startled. He smiled. Relax. I'm not dying anytime soon. But when that day comes, I want this to be yours. The house, the shop, everything. I blinked. Esteban, you don't need to say anything. He cut in gently. Just keep building. That's all I ever wanted for you. I swallowed hard, nodded once. We stood there a little longer, the smell of wood and oil hanging in the air. The sun dropped lower, gold turning to gray. Eventually, he clapped a hand on my shoulder and turned to head back upstairs. I stayed behind a few more minutes, ran my hand one last time along the unfinished frame, smiled, not for anyone else, not for show, not because I needed to prove I'd survive, but because I was shaping something that would last. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged.